What happens when one of pop music's biggest stars walks into what she thinks is a friendly late-night interview, only to discover the host has prepared an ambush that will leave her reputation hanging by a thread? Tonight's story will shock you because what unfolded between Katy Perry and Jimmy Kimmel wasn't just uncomfortable television, it was a calculated takedown that went horribly wrong. Before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, telling me which celebrity interview moment shocked you the most. Because trust me, you've never seen anything quite like this. The Tonight Show with Jimmy Kimmel was running like clockwork that evening. The studio audience buzzed with anticipation as cameras rolled for what was supposed to be a standard promotional interview. Katy Perry had arrived to discuss her latest album, her upcoming tour dates, and maybe share a few laughs with one of late-night television's most beloved hosts. At least, that's what everyone in the room believed was about to happen. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the incredibly talented Katy Perry," Jimmy announced with his trademark grin, gesturing toward the stage entrance as the band played her latest hit. Katy emerged in a stunning silver dress that caught the studio lights perfectly, waving to the enthusiastic crowd before settling into the guest chair. The applause died down as Jimmy shuffled his note cards, that familiar smirk playing across his lips. "Katy, welcome back to the show." "You look absolutely radiant tonight," Jimmy began, his tone warm and inviting. "Thank you so much for having me, Jimmy. I always love being here," Katy replied, crossing her legs and leaning forward slightly, ready to dive into what she assumed would be the usual promotional circuit banter. "So, let's talk about this new album. The critics have been, well, let's say they've been interesting in their responses," Jimmy said, his smile remaining fixed, but something shifting in his eyes. Katy's expression flickered for just a moment. "Interesting how?" "Well, some people are saying you've lost your edge, that maybe the magic just isn't there anymore. What would you say to those people who think your best days are behind you?" The question hung in the air like smoke. This wasn't the softball interview Katy had prepared for. The audience sensed the tension immediately, their excited chatter fading to uncomfortable silence. "I would say that's their opinion, and they're entitled to it," Katy responded diplomatically, though her posture had straightened. "But I'm incredibly proud of this album. It represents growth, evolution, and I think my fans appreciate that journey." Jimmy leaned back in his chair, tapping his pen against his desk. "But isn't that what every artist says when their numbers drop? Growth, evolution, artistic integrity. Meanwhile, your last 3 singles barely cracked the top 40. The camera caught Katy's jaw tighten almost imperceptibly. "Jimmy, I'm not sure where this is coming from, but success isn't just measured by chart positions." "Isn't it, though?" Jimmy pressed, his voice taking on an edge that his regular viewers had never heard before. "I mean, at the end of the day, this is a business, and businesses that don't perform, well, they get replaced." "Replaced?" Katy's voice rose slightly, confusion and irritation bleeding through her media-trained composure. "Come on, Katy. Taylor Swift is breaking records left and right. Billie Eilish is the voice of a generation. Even Ariana Grande is outselling you consistently. Don't you think it's time to be honest about where you stand in today's music landscape?" The audience was dead silent now. This wasn't the Jimmy Kimmel they knew and loved. This was something else entirely. Something uglier. Camera operators exchanged confused glances while producers in the control room scrambled to figure out what was happening. Katy took a deep breath, her media training kicking into overdrive. "Jimmy, I respect all of those artists tremendously, but I'm not here to compete with them. I'm here to make music that speaks to my experiences and hopefully resonates with people who need to hear it." "But people aren't hearing it, are they?" Jimmy shot back, consulting his note cards with theatrical precision. "Your streaming numbers are down 60% from your peak. Your tour ticket sales required multiple price cuts just to fill venues. At what point does artistic integrity become a convenient excuse for irrelevance?" The color drained from Katy's face. These weren't just tough questions, they were personal attacks dressed up as journalism. "I'm sorry, but I thought I was coming. Here to talk about my music, not to be lectured about my career choices." "We are talking about your music," Jimmy replied with mock innocence. "We're talking about how nobody's buying it anymore." That's when something snapped in Katy's expression. The diplomatic smile vanished completely, replaced by something much more authentic and infinitely more dangerous. "You know what, Jimmy? You're absolutely right. Let's talk about numbers," she said, her voice dropping to a deadly calm that sent chills through the studio. "Let's talk about how your ratings have been sliding for the past 2 years. Let's discuss how Netflix passed on your comedy special. Should we mention the 3 major sponsors who pulled out of your show last month?" Jimmy's confident smirk faltered for the first time. "Katy, I think you're deflecting." "Am I? Or am I just playing by the same rules you decided to establish tonight?" She leaned forward, her eyes locked on his with laser focus. "Because if we're being honest about career trajectories, yours isn't exactly pointing upward either, is it?" The studio audience was completely captivated now, watching what felt like a train wreck in slow motion. This wasn't comedy anymore. It was warfare, and Katy Perry had just fired the first real shot. Jimmy's face was flushing red, his carefully crafted persona cracking under pressure. "I think you're being a little defensive, don't you?" "Defensive?" Katy laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Jimmy, you invited me here under false pretenses, ambushed me with questions designed to humiliate me, and now you want to call me defensive when I respond with facts?" "I'm just asking the questions that everyone else is thinking," Jimmy stammered, clearly unprepared for this level of pushback. "No, you're not," Katy fired back immediately. "You're asking questions designed to create viral moments at my expense. There's a difference between journalism and exploitation, and what you're doing right now is absolutely the latter." The tension in the room was suffocating. Camera operators continued filming, but everyone could sense that this interview had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Jimmy was sweating now, his usual quick wit completely abandoning him in the face of Katy's controlled fury. "You want to talk about exploitation, Jimmy? Let's talk about how you built your entire career on making fun of people who can't fight back," Katy continued, her voice gaining strength with each word. "Remember when you spent an entire week mocking that kid's science fair project? Or when you made those jokes about the homeless veteran? That's your brand, isn't it?" Punching down. Jimmy's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. The confident host who had started this interview was nowhere to be found. "Katy, I think you're taking this too personally." "Too personally?" she repeated, incredulous. "You just spent the last 10 minutes trying to assassinate my character on national television, and I'm taking it too personally?" The audience was completely silent now, some covering their mouths in shock. This wasn't entertainment anymore, it was a public execution, and the intended victim had just grabbed the weapon. "Look, I was just trying to have an honest conversation about the music industry," Jimmy said weakly, his voice cracking slightly. "Honest?" Katy stood up from her chair, towering over the desk. "Jimmy, there's nothing honest about what you're doing here. This is a hit job, plain and simple. The question is why." "I don't know what you mean," Jimmy mumbled, but his eyes were darting around the studio looking for an escape route that didn't exist. "Oh, I think you do," Katy said, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried more menace than shouting. "This is about Taylor, isn't it? About the interview she did with Colbert last week where she mentioned our reconciliation. You couldn't stand that she chose his show over yours for that exclusive?" Jimmy's face went white. "That's ridiculous." "Is it? Because I heard from someone at your network that you've been pitching a segment called Has-Been Pop Stars for months. Tell me, Jimmy, was I always going to be your first victim? Or did I just get lucky?" The silence in the studio was deafening. Camera operators were still rolling, but everyone could feel the shift in power. This wasn't just a celebrity spat anymore. It was a revelation about the ugly machinery behind late-night television. "You're being paranoid," Jimmy said, but his voice lacked any conviction. "Am I? Then explain why your producers contacted my team 3 times this week, asking about my personal life, my relationships, my mental health struggles. That's not standard pre-interview protocol, Jimmy. That's opposition research." Jimmy's atoms. Apple bobbed as he swallowed hard. "We always do background research." "Background research or ammunition gathering?" Katy shot back. "Because there's a difference between preparing for an interview and preparing for an ambush." The host was completely off balance now, his carefully constructed image crumbling in real time. "Katy, I think maybe we should take a commercial break." "Oh, no," she said firmly, placing both hands on his desk and leaning forward. "We're not done here. You wanted to have this conversation, so let's have it. Let's talk about your research. Did you find out about my therapy sessions? My struggles with anxiety? Were you planning to weaponize my mental health too?" "I would." "Never," Jimmy protested, but his voice was barely above a whisper. "Wouldn't you? Because that's exactly what you just did with my career. You took my vulnerabilities, my honest moments of self-reflection from past interviews, and you turned them into weapons to humiliate me." The audience was completely transfixed. Some were recording on their phones. Others were just staring in stunned silence. This was television history unfolding in real time. "You know what the really sad part is, Jimmy?" Katy continued, her voice softening slightly. "I actually used to respect you. I thought you were different from the other late-night hosts. I thought you had integrity." Jimmy looked like he was about to cry. "Katy, please." "Please what? Please pretend this didn't happen? Please go along with your little character assassination, so your ratings get a boost?" She shook her head. "I'm not going to be your sacrificial lamb." "The network, they wanted," Jimmy started, then stopped himself. "The network wanted what, Jimmy? Finish that sentence." "They wanted controversy. Something to get people talking," he admitted, his voice barely audible. "And you chose me as your target because you thought I'd be an easy mark. The pop star having a rough patch, she won't fight back, right? She'll just take it and smile?" Jimmy couldn't meet her eyes. "It wasn't supposed to go like this." "How was it supposed to go? You attack me for 10 minutes, I smile and pretend it's all in good fun. And then you get your viral moment while I go home humiliated?" "I'm sorry," Jimmy whispered. "Sorry for what, exactly? Sorry you got caught? Sorry your plan backfired? Or sorry you tried to destroy someone's reputation for a ratings bump?" The control room was in chaos. Producers were screaming into their headsets, trying to figure out whether to cut to commercial or let this nuclear meltdown continue. The network executives watching from their offices were probably having heart attacks. "I never wanted to hurt you," Jimmy said, finally looking up at her. "But you did hurt me, Jimmy. You hurt me, and you did it intentionally, and you did it publicly. And the worst part is, you made me doubt myself for a minute. You made me question my worth, my talent, my place in this industry. Katy, But you know what? I'm not going to let you or anyone else define my value. I've been making music for over 15 years. I've touched millions of lives. I've raised millions of dollars for charity. I've used my platform to support causes I believe in. And if that's not enough for you or your network or your advertisers, then that's your problem, not mine." The audience was starting to murmur now, some people actually applauding. The energy in the room was shifting, and Jimmy could feel it. "I think we should really take that break now," he said desperately. "Why? Because you can't handle the consequences of your actions? Because you thought you could bully me and walk away clean?" Katy's voice was rising again. "This is what happens when you underestimate people, Jimmy. This is what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness." Jimmy was gripping his note cards so tightly they were crumpling in his hands. "Security!" he called out weakly. "Security?" Katy laughed, but it was a sharp, bitter sound. Are you seriously going to have me removed because I called you out for your behavior? The security guards looked confused, unsure whether to approach or stay back. This wasn't a physical altercation, it was a public reckoning, and nobody seemed to know how to handle it. This interview is over, Jimmy declared, standing up from his desk. No, Jimmy, you don't get to end this on your terms. You started this fight and I'm going to finish it. You want to know what's really pathetic about all of this, Jimmy? Katy continued, her voice cutting through the studio like a blade. You could have had a genuine conversation tonight. You could have asked me about my creative process, my collaborations, the messages I'm trying to send through my music. Instead, you chose to be a coward. Jimmy was backing away from his desk now, clearly looking for an exit strategy. I think this has gone far enough. Has it? Because I don't think we've even scratched the surface yet, Katy fired back. Let's talk about your research team. Let's discuss how they dug into my personal relationships, my past struggles, looking for anything they could use against me. That's not journalism, Jimmy. That's stalking. The audience was completely riveted. Phones were recording from every angle as this confrontation reached its boiling point. This wasn't just entertainment anymore. It was a masterclass in how to fight back against media bullies. You're blowing this out of proportion, Jimmy stammered, but his voice was shaking now. Am I? Then explain the email chain between your producers and the tabloid reporters. Explain why they were asking about my dating life, my family dynamics, my financial situation. Were you planning to air my dirty laundry too? Jimmy's face was now completely pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Of course you don't. Just like you don't know why your show has been hemorrhaging viewers for 2 years. Just like you don't know why 3 of your writers quit last month citing a toxic work environment. Just like you don't know why your own network is shopping around for your replacement. The silence in the studio was suffocating. Every word Katy spoke landed like a physical blow, and Jimmy had no defense left. That's enough, he said weakly, but there was no authority in his voice anymore. Is it enough, Jimmy? Because I'm just getting started. You want to talk about relevance? Let's discuss how your show consistently ranks dead last in late-night ratings. Let's examine how your YouTube clips get fewer views than TikToks made by teenagers in their bedrooms. Jimmy was actually trembling now. Security, please escort Miss Perry from the building. There it is, Katy said triumphantly. The moment when the bully realizes he's been outmatched. You can't win this argument with facts, so you're going to have me physically removed. How very brave of you, Jimmy. The security guards were still hesitating, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. This wasn't a standard removal. This was silencing someone who was speaking truth to power. You know what the beautiful irony is here? Katy continued, ignoring the security guards entirely. You thought attacking me would make you look strong, make you seem relevant again. But all you've done is expose yourself as exactly what everyone suspected you were. A washed-up comedian so desperate for attention that he'll destroy other people to get it. Get her out of here, Jimmy shouted, his voice cracking with desperation. I'll leave, Jimmy, but not because you're kicking me out. I'll leave because I have too much self-respect to share a stage with someone who has none, Katy said, straightening her dress and gathering her dignity around her like armor. She turned to face the audience, who were watching in stunned silence. I want you all to remember this moment. Remember what it looks like when someone in power tries to tear down someone they perceive as vulnerable. Remember how it feels to watch a bully get called out for their behavior. The audience began to applaud, slowly at first, then building to a thunderous ovation. Some people were standing now, showing their support for Katy's courage in fighting back. And I want you to remember that you have power too, Katy continued, her voice carrying over the applause. You don't have to accept this kind of behavior from your entertainment. You don't have to support shows that build their success on tearing people down. Jimmy was standing behind his desk, completely frozen, watching his career implode in real time. The applause was getting louder, more sustained, and it was clear that the audience was firmly on Katy's side. "This interview is over," he declared again, but his words were lost in the applause. "Yes, Jimmy, it is," Katy agreed, walking toward the stage exit. "But not because you ended it. It's over because I choose to end it. There's a difference." She paused at the edge of the stage, turning back one final time. "For what it's worth, Jimmy, I hope you get the help you need. I hope you find a way to be better than this. Because this isn't who you used to be, and it doesn't have to be who you are." With that, she walked off the stage to thunderous applause, leaving Jimmy standing alone behind his desk, completely destroyed. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every moment of his humiliation. The control room was in complete chaos. Producers were screaming, network executives were having emergency conference calls, and social media was already exploding with clips from the interview. Within minutes, hashtags were trending, think pieces were being written, and the entire entertainment industry was talking about what had just happened. Jimmy stood there for what felt like an eternity, the applause for Katy still echoing in his ears. His carefully constructed image was in ruins, his credibility was shot, and his career was hanging by a thread. All because he thought he could take down someone who turned out to be stronger than he ever imagined. "We're going to commercial," someone finally called out, but the damage was already done. The cameras had captured everything, and there was no taking it back. As the studio lights dimmed and the audience began to file out, still buzzing with excitement and shock, Jimmy remained frozen at his desk. He had started this interview thinking he was the predator, only to discover he was actually the prey. Katy Perry had just given him a masterclass in grace under pressure, and he had failed spectacularly. The aftermath would be swift and merciless. By morning, the clips would have millions of views. By afternoon, think pieces would be published about power dynamics in media. By evening, Jimmy's future at the network would be in serious jeopardy. But in that moment, in the immediate aftermath of his public destruction, Jimmy Kimmel could only stand there and contemplate how badly he had miscalculated. He had underestimated Katy Perry's intelligence, her strength, and her ability to fight back when cornered. And that miscalculation had just cost him everything. The lesson was clear, even if it came too late for Jimmy to benefit from it. In the entertainment industry, as in life, kindness should never be mistaken for weakness. And when you try to tear someone down for your own gain, you better be prepared for them to fight back with everything they have. That's the story of how Katy Perry turned the tables on Jimmy Kimmel and walked away victorious from what was supposed to be her public execution. Make sure to subscribe if you want more stories like this, and comment below telling me which celebrity do you think would handle a situation like this the best, because after seeing how Katy handled Jimmy, I'd love to know who else you think has that kind of steel underneath their public persona.